Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. We have a lot to get into, including March 6th, Le'Veon Bell. What will the Steelers do? We'll also talk about the Pirates down at spring training. Pitt basketball has to make a decision about their head coach, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Penguins, who after the trade of Derek Brassard finally get a win. And we'll talk about some of the offshoots concerning that story. And here to talk with you is your panel tonight for our program. Left to right, we have Chris Mueller. You can tell the tan there, back from Florida. It's Starkey and Mueller, 93.7 The Fan every day. In the middle, it's Jason Mackey, outstanding beat writer for the Pittsburgh Penguins on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and back from Pyeongchang. Yes.
Ahang-seo, Pomp.
How jet lag yet? Do you need any coffee? Can we help you? From the
I need help, but I don't know about that.
That's a long flight. I understand what you went through. He's back 14 hours in the air, and here we go. We'll start with the Penguins and their defense. The fact that they don't have as many necessarily as they had in previous years. You know, if you're going to go into a playoff and you have 4 rounds to get through, you're going to need as many as you can. Shot blocking becomes a big thing. I was surprised Jim Rutherford didn't do anything after the acquisition of Derek Brassard. So, Jason Mackey, you cover this team every single day. Were you surprised with that, and do you think they have enough defensively right now moving forward?
Well, Pomp, I was surprised that they didn't address the depth on defense. I think it can be an issue for the Penguins. I know that Rutherford is he said this a few times, but the guys in Wilkes-Barre, they are confident that those guys can come up and play. Do I agree with Jim? Not necessarily. I was surprised that he wasn't able to pull something off on deadline day. I know they were sort of in heavily on 3 guys, weren't able to make the deal. They did have the cap space. That was something, they operated the Brassard trade, so they had enough cap space, and they still didn't do anything. But Matt Hunwick has looked rough, to say the least. I liked what Chad Ruedel did the other night, but beyond those guys, there aren't really a lot of NHL caliber defensemen should somebody get hurt.
You know, the adage I think would be that you can't score your way to a Stanley Cup, especially in this era of the NHL, but it certainly seems with the moves that the Penguins made that they're going to try to test that theory. Hunwick is just, it's tough to watch, actually. I thought Ruedel, too, was pretty good yesterday. I thought it was encouraging that they play a team like the Islanders that wants to go up and down and basically wants to eschew defense. And they were able to play, after the Jari flub, a pretty nice, smooth, consistent game and not let too much happen that you didn't want to see. Personally, the only thing I think that could be their salvation on defense is if you get a healthy and good Chris Letang the rest of the way, and suddenly you feel like you have 1.5 players there because he's going to log so many minutes, because he's going to ease the burden on those 5 and 6 guys, those third pair guys, that could be your way out of this. But if he gets hurt or if he's just not great,
I don't know. I mean, for me, I think a bigger concern is the goaltending. Matt Murray's a guy who's, he's good when he's good, but he's also, he gets hurt, and he's out now with the concussions, missed the last 3 games. It seems to me taking a puck to the face is a job hazard, right? And if that's something, what we saw from Jari, Jason was there. I think after that first goal last night, you could literally hear me laughing 7 to 8 seats away from where Jason was. I mean, it's not a good look defensively. I don't really care how bad if the goaltending is good, it doesn't matter if the defense is good. So
you brought up that, and it's an interesting point. Last year and the year before, there was a luxury of Murray-Fleury, although Murray was once in this unknown field where not many people saw him in action, so that doesn't mean these guys can't get it done. But Jason, back over to you on this. Can the Penguins win a Stanley Cup if they miss Matt Murray for any significant amount of time?
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by significant, Bob, but a couple series, no, I don't think they can. 1 series, maybe. It's just such a roller coaster with these young guys right now. From any game to the next game, they can have their goaltender win it for them and look really good. They can have their goaltender lose it for them and look really bad, and they don't know which guy that's going to be. So, I wouldn't bet on those guys carrying them long-term the way Marc-Andre Fleury could, but to win a series, to win a game, they certainly do have the talent. It's just all about when they're able to adjust to the NHL, a bigger league, and find some more consistency in their game, because it's not there right now.
Well, I happen to believe that if it's a 1-series deal, I think Tristan Jarry could win them a series. People seem to forget, or maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, or I'm misremembering something. It seemed like until Matt Murray kind of exploded up through the ranks that Jarry was the guy you heard about as that's going to be Fleury's successor. That's the guy they have earmarked. That's the guy whose talent they love, who everything else that they love. That talent's pretty obviously there. When he's on, he's awfully good. And as much as everyone's going to have a good laugh about the first goal, including his teammates apparently on the bench that he let up against the Islanders, he was very solid after that. And that second goal that he gave up was not his fault. That's a bad bounce. I believe that if it's one series and it's Tristan Jarry, especially if it's against a team that maybe isn't on their level or that talent-wise can't stack up, yeah, I think he could do it. So, yes, the answer to the question, Bob, is I think they can win a Stanley Cup without Matt Murray playing every series, but it probably can't be a long gap in there. So I guess that's a long-winded way of agreeing exactly with what Jason said.
I would just say no. I think even if he misses half of a series, it's hard for me to see. We've seen that happen. They've had defensive lapses when the backup has been in this season. I don't know why that is. They do seem to play better in front of Murray. It's funny. Niemi was the worst goalie in the history of the hockey for the 5 minutes he was here, and he has 50 saves last night for the Canadiens, and they get a point, although they ended up falling in overtime to the Bruins. So for me, I just think that there's something, it's like weird when the backup is in there, the guys in front are not that good. Last night, an exception, but last night, as we all know, was one of those, hey, if you can't get it together against the Islanders, that's when you hit absolute panic button. So I think that was sort of a one-off for them.
Another thing that happened this week, given the cap space situation, was Patrick Hornquist got a deal done. Jim Rutherford just simply doesn't do these sorts of things unless he really wants a player, and he does with this guy. But, Jason, 5 years, is that too long? Back end, are they going to pay and look back and say we shouldn't have gone 5 years?
You know, I don't understand that, Pomp. There's this sort of automatic assumption that Patrick Hornquist is like going to break down and his arms are going to fall off or whatever it is, like at the end of this contract. I don't get it. He's going to be 36 years old. His idol, Thomas Holmstrom, played until I think he was 39 or something like that. I mean, Hornquist is maniacal about how he takes care of his body. I do think it can be okay. I wouldn't automatically assume that this deal is going to be an albatross at the end. And regardless, the Penguins need Patrick Hornquist so bad, it doesn't matter what that final year looks like.
Well, to me, I think in the short term, Jason, I'm with you. I think it's a good idea for the next 2 to 3 years. But this is a guy, and he has been durable. He's played, 70-plus games in 7 seasons. I mean, he's a guy. But the way that he plays, look at Cooney. Everybody was like, well, Cooney's not the guy he was. Cooney, and $3.85 million was a luxury the Penguins decided they couldn't afford at 36. So I think, and then we talk about the core. Well, Sid's going to be 35 then? Gino's going to be 36. I mean, do you want a bunch of old dudes at the front? I just think if you're going to look for guys that are expendable, the back end of the deal, he's going to be one of those guys. I would be stunned if he's here for year 5 of that contract.
You're absolute prime with Malkin, Kessel, Crosby, all in an age where you can realistically expect to contend, just based on the history of the NHL, is the next 3 seasons. And that's why this is a great move. There's always the rush to say, did this team spend too much money and give too many years to a guy that everyone acknowledges in the here and now they need? If he's healthy, more or less, I don't care if the guy plays 65 games or 60 games a year in the regular season as long as he's ready for the playoffs. If he's healthy the next 3 years in the playoffs and they challenge for cups the next 3 years and he's an important part of it, I honestly don't care what the last 2 years of the last year of this deal looks like. The Penguins aren't a team that's trying to make shrewd signings of players and lock up a core right now. They're trying to max out a cup window, and this move allows them to have the best chance to do that.
Yeah, it was sort of me like the Chris Kunitz deal. He got a couple of years after. A lot of people say, why? Well, he got the goal last year in that Ottawa series in game second overtime. As long as you get stuff out of the guy, and I think they can certainly do that with Patrick Hornquist. We're going to take a break here. We want to remind you about stuff going on at Number One Cochran. Have you heard about CochranOverstock.com? It's where Number One Cochran sells brand new vehicles for less when they have too many in stock. Number One Cochran orders more than 12,000 new cars and trucks a year, so it's not surprising that they end up with a few too many on some of their models. What is surprising is how little you will pay for all those brands. Full manufacturer warranties, new inventory weekly. Save now at CochranOverstock.com. Steelers on deck. The Number One Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by Number One Cochran. Go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.